Well, there you can see nothing happening today. It's just kind of gray outside and a little wet. So I will roll my window up and take a look at my couple of novels here. Unequivocal Malice, Michael Kujawski, also pseudonym Michael Parker, 2004. That's what I looked like 20 years ago. And After Dark, Michael Kujawski, 2015, A World Full of Life and Sorrow, and those little pine needles down there. And here on the back, whatever year I had that photograph taken, it mentions that I was an English teacher in China. I actually taught in Asia about 3.5 years, full classroom teaching, classrooms with approximately 50 students per class, all the different age levels, elementary, high school, and college. And since being on the forensics team in high school, I've stressed popular conversational topics like the first day in school, hometown, and shopping. I began my writing career as a wire editor and sports editor at daily newspapers and weeklies, almost all of them in Wisconsin, but I have done a little writing in Houston and also in northern Illinois, north of Chicago. Now here, but most of them were in Wisconsin, Ashland, Eau Claire, Beaver Dam. People always ask me, well, what's your book about? Well, one of the best ways is to look at the book jacket as soon as I better shut the car off here and get my foot off the brake. And after an innocent tourist unexpectedly turns up dead in this thrilling murder mystery, a young couple on the verge of marriage, the county sheriff, and a rehabilitated gambling addict join forces to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. And down here I have that After Dark combines elements of mystery and romance with literary humor, which is probably different from a nightclub, and sober insight into the alienated lifestyle of the homicidal maniac. It also tells about the changes in our society and so on. So you take a look at a book like this one, After Dark, 2015, 10 years old now, but this was out down here in southern Wisconsin at the Cudahy Library, and up north of Milwaukee at the Glendale Library, the North Shore Library, Whitefish Bay Library. This was actually in the Greenfield and many libraries, also several in Illinois and also in Missouri. And for instance, chapter 4 here, let's take a look at just, the first paragraph to get a feel for what this novel is about. When Kyle and his guests, Ralph Harding and his 14-year-old son Blake, entered Donna's, a chorus of hello greeted them. Blake kept in mind the fact that some patrons were old friends from Kirkville. That was back in the days when Kyle and Ralph had been first-rate friends and close neighbors. So one question you want to ask yourself when you look at this book is, what level do you think it's on? Children's, young adult, or adult? Let me take a look at some of the other chapters here, because I'm reviewing this, and unfortunately I'm not paid at the moment. Technically, these two novels sort of lost small amounts of money, but after publishing After Dark, actually in 2015, my ESL teaching career was winding down, but I was employed for a full year in Shenzhen, China, which is very difficult for Americans to find teaching jobs there. Back in 2014, I went from the fall semester of 2014 until the summer of 2015, almost a school year, a full year there at their high school. I prefer to be on the payrolls of colleges, which I've been on a couple times at a university in the middle of China and another one in near Guangzhou in Guangdong province. So here's chapter 7. Let's see if any of this teaching or learning. I was at the UW-Madison where I graduated. As Sheriff Lockhart strolled into the considerable 3-story Texas County Administration building, murky rainwater sloshed around the neighborhoods of Kirkville. Following a summer thunderstorm, pedestrians returned to the sidewalks and traffic resumed on the slick streets. A utility crew sent by the electric company scaled a nearby telephone pole and reconnected a broken power line. The sheriff strode gingerly over puddles of muck and rainwater. He walked through glass entrance doors, depositing muddy footprints on the checkered floor. So he's investigating a homicide case. A woman's body was found in the forest, and he's heading into his office to investigate that. And then he's talking about the evidence here. I reviewed the evidence in Kyle's digital device, his camcorder, where we might have found evidence leading to the perpetrator. Perhaps every piece of the puzzle counts. Corbin, he's the sheriff, related. We've got to keep plugging away, unearthing more evidence. It's a matter of numbers. When we examine the facts as we know them, we get a little closer to the truth. Well, a matter of numbers, the baseball season just started here in late March of 2025, and so there's certainly keep track of numbers in that sport. So I guess so do police departments and sheriff's departments. Chapter 9, Deputy Brinkman walked out of the morning sunshine and into the sheriff's office, diligently skimming over files of pending cases stored inside the Texas County Courthouse. Texas County basement had reaffirmed his belief that he'd found a useful niche within the department. Other deputies seemed to go home when the shift ended. Perhaps that was why some of them went through Kirkville. They were either too good or too lousy for Kirkville. Unless a cop came up with the money to open his own private investigation agency, he headed off to another department, but not Reggie. He was usually the only person down in the basement skimming over old police reports and piles of court documents. So Reggie Brinkman, as I recall, was a deputy who got into some trouble investigating this case in this story, and I won't reveal what the trouble was. Here's chapter 10. Mark is a reporter who's dating his girlfriend at the newspaper. Mark had planned to research murder and mayhem at the neighborhood branch of the public library, but Mark's hours became circuitous, and he let his time slip out of control. Out of curiosity, he'd rented a classic VHS movie video with past black and white stars like Cary Grant, who was connected to Alfred Hitchcock, and Marilyn Monroe, known mostly for her singing, but also her acting. He'd wondered what their lives were like, what their movies had to tell the audience. He also reflected how the Hollywood star system had changed over the decades. Maybe one day he'd write a feature article about it. For now, he'd hastily return the cassette to the outdoor drop slot, then walk back to the brick library building. He'd hoped he'd had enough time to scour the nooks and crannies, searching for books that would shed light on Conrad's brutal death. So they still haven't perfectly figured out who committed the murder in here, but half a dozen of the characters in here are looking into it. Here on page 274, Jake wrinkled his face in confusion. I guess they killed him. He paused before finishing his point. Much of this flick was visual scenery deep in the woods. The images melted into each other, but as I recall, the heroes killed the forest monster. Well, it's unlikely that this one has the supernatural in it, but they are talking about it. This did not have a forest monster in it. So how many pages was this? After Dark, available on the internet, 394 for the body of the story. So I think it's worth the $2.99 to download it from Kindle.